My wife of 17 years casually mentioned opening our relationship to others. I have a history of PRN addiction and she has taken it very hard, describing how it feels like cheating etc. I think it is in order to say that she has had mental problems quite a bit in her life. Anyway, we have had a dead bedroom situation on about 10 years, which has wrecked my self-confidence and made it harder to manage my addiction. The DB problem has been due to physical, mental relationship problems and whatever else you can imagine. With 3 kids, I stayed in the relationship out of a sense of responsibility and too scared to leave, being about as shy and introverted as we come. Long story short, about 10 months ago, after finally having surgery and feeling physically better, I gave him plenty of time to heal and bought him an S-Time toy as a gift, and Rolf told him that when she was ready, it was time to relearn her body and maybe try to reconnect her S-temporality. And she likes to do it at her own pace, but she feels safer with me or alone. I expected little. She took this bad boy around town almost every day for the next 4 months. And yes, I feel bad for being nosy, but that was too obvious. Nevertheless, a few months ago something changed. She started S-Time, and everything was wonderful, and the next day it happened again. A few days passed and again S-Time for 3 days, etc. Guess we've had more S-weather in the last month than we've had in our last 5 years combined. And then, after an evening discussing my addiction, she wonders out loud in a very accusing way that I've probably cheated on her many times over the years and that she might prefer it to me watching PRN, and that she actually thinks it might be better to open up our relationship with other people instead of asking me if I'm cheating or not. At this point it might be fair to say that she was the first person I ever had intimacy with and I never cheated on her. And we didn't want to exclude that aspect of her time. But we decided against it because we are both jealous. My alarm bells are ringing slowly but surely. The latest turn of events is that she has reconnected with her ex-boyfriend from many years ago, and she tells me that they have been texting and talking quite openly about their relationship issues for a while, and today she casually mentioned that the ex suggested they meet to talk about things from their past. Like I said, I'm starting to get pretty jealous and worried about his suddenly blossoming S-timeality and talking about opening up our relationship while still blaming me for cheating out of the blue, and if to finish the ex who has started texting. Am I crazy, jealous, stupid or blind? Please tell me what you think. Sorry for the wall of typos and horrible formatting. I'm typing from my phone at work. Story 2. Found out 10 years later. My wife died in 2018 after 30 years of marriage. Afterwards I reworked my life and in the process, without going into detail, found that she had cheated on me with one of my clients. Our marriage had become a joke anyway, but I did grieve and went through all the burial services etc. I will never tell my adult sons about the cheating, but sometimes it's hard to keep up appearances with them. Edit. That should say 3 years later, but I don't know how to edit the title. Redditors reactions next story after. Redditor 1. Wow. Sorry, but I'd have to go and PSS on her headstone. Redditor 2. My father passed away last year. The day after he died, my mom told my sister and me all those stories about my dad that made him sound negative. He didn't cheat on her, but he did other things before they got married and made her laugh at him afterwards. My sister and I were so uncomfortable and honestly felt like she should have kept it to herself. If the situation were reversed, I'm sure my father would have stories to tell about my mother that would make her look bad. We wanted to remember our dad for how it was with us. It made her vindictive to talk bad about someone who couldn't defend herself, and I'm 100% sure it didn't make her feel better or shut down. I think you realize that, and that's why you haven't told your kids. I'm so sorry you're going through all of this, but you don't wrap yourself up by telling them, and you're just letting your kids feel how you feel right now. Why would you want to drag them through that misery? Redditor 3. Something similar happened to me. My mother was an invalid in her final years and my father was her caretaker, but they had an elderly lady who came in 3 days a week to clean and do things around the house. One day I dropped by and caught my dad and the housekeeper fooling around on the kitchen table while my mom was sleeping upstairs. After that I snatched a new one from him, and he was either better at hiding it or he quit altogether. To this day, I have never told my siblings or my children about it. After both of them died, one of my brothers was a greedy bitch and made dividing their property a long and painful process. I almost told him several times, but my wife, who was the only other person who knew, warned me against doing it under such circumstances, as it would be extremely painful and would not help or change anything in my life. The long term. The only thing that helps me cope is my wife's advice. I would recommend that if you don't have someone nearby who can help you deal with this safely, that she find an ICU that specializes in pain counseling and work with them. I'm sorry you found out and I hope you find some peace someday. Redditor follow up. This is good advice. Sometimes it feels so good to let some information loose but always think about the consequences afterwards. Story 3. Discovered my 38M wife 38F of 17 years has been texting another man for 1.5 years and hiding it from me. This is a throwaway account for reasons which will become obvious. I apologize in advance for the wall of text, but there's a lot here. To give you the background, my wife and I have been married for 17 years and have 2 kids 16M and 10F. We were high school sweethearts who got married right out of college. Our marriage has been mostly solid with no major issues, no breakups, no abuse, no cheating, no dead bedroom, etc. I've never had much reason to doubt my wife in the past and not snoop on her phone emails, etc. I have a stressful job that requires me to work a lot. I admit that I started reading our relationships relatively recently, and to be honest, I felt like it made me a little paranoid about infidelity. Also, my wife has been acting a little strange lately, i.e. she is more wary of her phone than hers, she goes to bed hours after I go to bed, etc. So yesterday I had to present my phone bill to my employer for expenses. We brought your device and my employer will refund us a portion of our cell phone bill provided we present the bill. I printed out the bill and noticed it was longer than usual, 42 pages. With our provider, your bill shows all calls and text messages made during the month. So I start flipping through the bill, go to my wife's phone and notice a number keeps coming. There is literally a whole page of non-stop texts, probably over 100 just from this number. There are several entries where she texted this person until 1 or 2 a.m., and one day she texted continuously from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. I usually get home around 7 a.m. and then 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Not only is the number one that I don't recognize, but it's also not from our area code. It's from an area code in the same metro area as us, about 45 minutes away. So I type in the number on Facebook and a guy's name pops up again, which I don't recognize and my wife has never mentioned to me. I call him from my work number and the voicemail says the same name. So I talk to my wife about it. She admits having had a non-romantic relationship with this person for a year and a half. She said she felt lonely and went online to a website for people looking for non-romantic relationships. To be clear, she has had male friends in the past and we currently have a few friends who are MF and I have never objected to her talking to them. But she deliberately kept it a secret from me for a year and a half and kept lying to me when I asked her who she texted until 1 a.m. She insists that nothing physical happened and that they never met in person, and I tend to believe her. She justified it by saying that he had never crossed that line. At the same time, I feel emotionally very betrayed. She took a lot of time that she didn't invest in our relationship and put him in a relationship with another man that she hid from me. I'm a bit lost here. I make enough money, top 1%, that we don't have to worry about paying the mortgage if we split up, and I don't worry about finding another partner if that happens. I stay in fairly good condition. I also love our children and would really miss seeing them every night. That being said, I really feel like my trust has been shattered and I don't know how I can recommit to spending my life with someone who's been lying to me like this for a year and a half. Am I doing too much of this? Edit to answer some of the obvious questions I should have answered from the start. Yes, she is extremely sorry. Her first reaction when I asked her about it was, "You're just a friend." I persisted and she admitted it was inappropriate and lied about it. She was extremely sorry and said that she would do everything in her power not to lose me. She texted him last night telling him she could no longer have contact with him and she removed his contact information from her phone. If we stay together, we will definitely do couples therapy. Update: discovered my 38M wife 38F of 17 years has been texting another man for 1.5 years and hiding it from me. First of all, I apologize again for the wall of text. There's a lot here and it might not be interesting for some, but it's cathartic for me. Secondly, before we start, I want to sincerely thank everyone who commented on my article, but especially those who mentioned iPhone recovery software. I owe you a lot. You're the reason Reddit is awesome. Okay, we stopped on Monday night when she admitted to having an emotional affair with another man for 1.5 years, but to say that was it. After posting on Reddit and people mentioning iPhone recovery software, I called her to tell her not to use her phone and that I would restore the information later that night. She immediately admitted to sexting the other guy. I went home and tried to run the software. For some reason, probably human error, it didn't work well. Only parts of 350 texts were recovered and none of them seemed relevant. I decided against paying the $70 for the whole install and walked away from the idea. I went out with a friend who had been the victim of adultery at 7 a.m. to discuss drinks, and she thought I should give my wife a second chance as long as she never met the other man. I got home around 9:30 p.m. She was talking to her best friend at the conservatory. I awkwardly said goodbye to best friend who I must have known and went to my office. My wife came over 10 minutes later when her friend was gone and immediately started yelling at me, telling me I really needed to get over this and she wouldn't feel like she had today for 6 months. I freaked out and noticed that I had known this for 30 hours and only received small truths in that time. After we finished yelling at each other, she left. She went into my daughter's bedroom to comfort her. I thought she was gone to text the other guy, and I finished my work and went to bed in the guest room. I woke up around 1:30. I went into the bedroom and grabbed her phone. I scrolled through the text messages and emails, but there was almost nothing as anything older than a day had been deleted. I was not feeling well. I felt like I needed to be able to trust her, but I still firmly believed that she was lying to me and that there were things she wasn't telling me. I put the phone back in his room and then went back to the office. I googled iPhone recovery software and saw results that sounded interesting. I walked back into the room and picked up his phone again. This time she woke up and she followed me to the office. This time I paid more attention to the software. I put the phone on airplane mode, turned off iTunes auto-syncing, closed all programs, etc. I took the free test and it came back with 3,500 results, the 6th of which belonged to the other guy. I paid the $50 for the software and ran the full program. It lasted about 10 minutes, during which she kept trying to convince me not to watch it. Once I got the results, I started browsing through the lyrics. The good news was that there was no indication that she and the other had met. I was in Europe from Monday to Thursday last week and there were a lot of new text messages. Many of them were sexual, but none indicated they would meet, which brings us to the bad news. I asked when they started sexting. She said October. I went through the lyrics. They're not really organized by name, just by file size, so you kind of have to go through them all, and found one from July. It was clearly someone else anyway. The style was very different and was very sexually explicit. Can't wait to see you naked, I'll wear whatever you want, etc. There was also talk of meetings, so she had a candid match with 2 other Craigslist guys. She said she fell with one of them, but they met in a park, so they didn't have sex. At that moment I really felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Any doubts that I could trust her again became irrelevant, and I knew I could go on with her clear conscience. Later that night, she honestly slept with the other Craigslist guy once. Last night, she admitted to sleeping with another man in Alaska when she vacationed there alone a year and a half ago. I believe she didn't meet the guy she was texting given the messages I read, although I'm a firm believer that eventually I would, due to the way the texts progressed and that nothing seemed to happen when I was out of town for a week, but now it doesn't matter. You can guess the caption. She cries her eyes out and begs me to give her another chance. I plan to stay together over the kids' vacation, but we'll be moving out in January. Story 4. I 27M had been with my now ex 27F for 10 years. I proposed last week during a trip to St. Lucia. She told me she'd been cheating. Our relationships. How does one move forward after a decade being with someone then getting screwed over in the worst way possible? Sorry for the long title, it just came out that way. I had been with Carrie for 10 years, best friends since we met in high school when we were 12. We had tons of amazing memories. We traveled to several countries together and worked long-term for 3 years while being apart for studies. Although now I find it hard to believe anything is real. Last Thursday I proposed to her in St. Lucia, not in front of anyone, just wanted it to be private. She didn't say anything and I was like, oh shit, did I say or do something wrong? She started crying and said she had to explain something to me. She didn't want to marry me because she slept with the co-worker she said was just a friend for about 3 months. She said she thought it was just a thing that would pass, but it would go on, and she said she loves me so much more. I will never understand that I helped her so much and she doesn't know not even why she did it. She said she loved me too much to marry me even though she knew she did what she did. She don't like the guy, it was just about time, and she was trying to end the affair, but I proposed to her before that happened and she said she knew when I knelt down that they wouldn't marry me, after all I'd done for her, so she told me. I feel like my whole world has shattered. We had an awkward flight home Friday night and haven't spoken since. She tried to call me but I didn't answer, and I'm free until Monday, so I'm right here. I barely ate. I feel like there's a black hole in my stomach sucking everything out of me. I can't get over the fact that he cheated, that he lied, that he kept it from me. Apparently my sister had words for her. I try to pretend I'm fine, but I'm not. Every morning I've woken up since Friday morning last week was just gloomy. I love her so much but have no plans to get back together. I don't think I could ever trust her again, let alone forgive her for very long. My best friend brought a 6-pack yesterday and we drank in the evening. I cried in the shower last night. I never cry, not even when my mother, who was very close to me, passed away, but I sobbed like a child last night, and honestly I would have loved it if my mother had been there to tell me everything would be okay. Well, my sister brought some breakfast this morning and made me eat because she knows I haven't really eaten lately, zero appetite. Anyway, I'm sorry this post is so inconsistent. Any advice for someone on how best to progress and where to go from here? Because I have nothing, no idea. I feel like a zombie. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, this might sound harsh but I mean it with the best of intentions. Be thankful that this all came to light when it did and not when you two were married. Use this time to explore life and indulge in your hobbies and interests. It's very painful when a loved one betrays us, but you need to remember that you have a very bright future in front of you. Don't waste it on someone who didn't respect you. Perhaps when you're feeling up for it, organize a nice night out with friends and family. Try not to lock yourself in a room and dwell, as that will only make you feel worse. Redditor follow up. Be thankful that this all came to light when it did and not when you two were married. True, and maybe it's a city silver lining, but at least you got out of this with your moral compass intact. I can't imagine the guilt I'd carry for the rest of my life if I had betrayed someone I loved this much. If she was truly a city person, she would have accepted the proposal with no remorse. Clearly, she knows she ducked up and knows she can't marry you because of it, and that knowledge will haunt her. So I hope she deserves it. Redditor 2, this is a quote from a post long ago I saved. I hope it helps you. The ducked up thing is that this is great. Every bitter moment of disillusionment brings you closer to truth. In your case, it brings you out of a city relationship and leaves you open to being in a good one. We cling to our old pain, we don't want it to go because we are attached to it, because we are afraid of an unknown future without it. The truth is, when we do this, we are clinging to an anchor that holds us at the bottom of the ocean. We are denying ourselves the growth we need. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this. You are totally allowed to feel the pain, cry in the shower, get drunk and scream your rage at the God you don't believe in. Do that. Feel that pain, dive deep into it, for about 72 hours. You have till Friday to wallow in self-pity, tell everyone how unfair it all is, and bemoan the injustice of being treated so poorly by someone you treated so well. But come Friday, I want you to start thinking about how it's better to be without her. Realize that she is likely to always be like this. She probably isn't going to suddenly stop cheating on people. She isn't going to stop pulling s it like X has my permission to punch me in the face and blame it on you. Instead of thinking how hard it is to not have been cherished the way you want and deserve to be, realize that it's much harder to go through life not able to love and cherish people. She used you. She's never going to be able to stop wondering if her next lover is using her. She lives in a world where deceit is a part of love, and you just got out of that world. Think about that, you just got out of that world. Now you're free. Now you can find the next stage of your adventure. Maybe it will be the last stage, maybe it will be another false start, but it will be new and different. Now you have an opportunity to redefine yourself. Hit the gym, throw yourself into your work, reconnect with your loved ones. Or, if you want a little less BS, don't expect to be happy. Instead, work on creating the causes and conditions for you to find happiness. Take care of yourself and the things you love, be interested in personal growth, and have a lot of fun. Eventually you'll lock eyes with a special someone, and then a few years later you'll laugh about how some ex of yours cheated on you for months, and it probably saved you a few years of a dysfunctional relationship. I love you, brother, you got this. Redditor follow up, I was kinda with it until the end. She's not ever going to be some ex, not after 10 years. Redditor 3, this comment will get downvoted to non-existence, but it appears it is still taboo on these types of threads. You don't have to throw away those 10 years. Marriages and relationships have been known to survive affairs. Frankly, the fact that she felt the need to tell you, so much that she couldn't hold it back, the moment you proposed, is a sign of some level of character that is worth noting. Most Redditors will say once a cheater, always a cheater, but really there are degrees of cheating and this fact is lost on the hive mind. There is a difference between your girlfriend, not wife, having an affair with a co-worker and your fiancé blowing the best man, behind the barn, during your wedding reception. There is a great deal of info out there on how extramarital affairs have been overcome, and how some people have reported them as improving a relationship in the long term. Just Google "can a couple overcome an extramarital affair?" I agree that total cutoff is appropriate right now. For at least a couple of weeks. But if you feel, deep down, like you actually think this woman can learn from her mistake, and if she wants to try to rebuild your trust and respect, then I think anything is possible. There may be conditions you have to impose on her. For example, leaving the job where that guy works. I think that is reasonable as is, obviously, cutting off all contact with him, for absolutely fucking ever. But keep in mind that, going forward, if you want to try to rebuild your life with her, then one day you would have to forgive her. If you want her to work on rebuilding your respect, you also have to refrain from hitting her over the head with this "you cheated" stick for the rest of your lives. Just think about it. Reddit will tell you that if she doesn't lose you, she didn't learn her lesson. I don't believe that is always true. Edit, I wrote something unclear. One day you really do have to forgive her above. It should say if you want to try to rebuild your life with her, then one day you would have to forgive her. Never forgiving is definitely an option, and would be perfectly fair in this case. But it is not an option if he and she want to try to overcome this affair. I have edited in place too. Redditor follow up. Reddit and our relationships are often accused of always telling everyone to break up. Agree or not in this case, this is well thought out advice, and deserves to be highlighted and not dismissed offhandedly. Redditor 4, hey man, I went through something similar last year, and I can assure you things will get better. It hurts right now, and it's totally understandable to feel lost. You're gonna feel like that, and you're going to feel all sorts of emotions in the time to come. You can't fight it, and you can't beat yourself up over what happened. It wasn't your fault. When I was in your position, I moved on autopilot. I kept my routine. I ate when I had to eat because I had to focus on something. I did work when I had to, and I reached out to my friends, especially when I felt like I didn't want to be around anyone. I'd call them, or text them, just something to get my feelings out and know that my friends had my back. Do that, reach out to your friends, lean on them, and talk with them about anything. It's kind of funny, I mean it hurts right now, but in time you will see that this heartache you feel right now is just the beginning of a new adventure for you. You will be just fine, and you will get through this. Redditor follow up, agreed. I'm now 3 years out from a similar situation. Met at 18 and together for more than 10 years. It was incredibly difficult and frankly more than a little scary to think about being on my own again, dating again with no real experience, all of that. The biggest thing that helped me move on was to take the time to answer one question. Who are you? You had shared goals, shared viewpoints, shared experiences. Now it's time to take what you can from that, without judgment, without ties. Try to find the you in all of that history and use that as a starting point for your future growth. It doesn't feel like it now, and it won't for a long time, but this is an immense opportunity. Good luck to you.